Hi, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Indira, and today I'm joined by multiple times national cross country champion, international triathlete, including recently having raced at the World Triathlon Series, Beth Cook. In this episode, Beth shares her journey, the challenges she's been through, including some struggles around eating, having junior success, growing up with two parents as professional triathletes and three older sisters who were also within the sport, going to the States and pursuing her dreams in an attempt to reach the Olympics. Beth has an incredible mindset and she makes a lot of really good and valuable points, a lot to think about and be inspired from in this episode. Okay, let's get into it. Hi, Beth, how are you? And welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's sunny today, so that's a nice change. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you, and glad to hear things are good your end. And yeah, for sure, it does look pretty sunny. Where are you based at the moment?
So I'm in Charlotte in North Carolina in America. I moved here like 3 years ago to study, and I'm graduating in December, so not long left now.
Wow, so the last year left in, is it the NCAA system that you're in, or is it maybe slightly different with the tri background?
Yeah, so NCA, it's NCA for track and cross country, and then for triathlon, we're an emerging sport. So we are a NCA sport, but it's how do I word this? It's emerging out of becoming a sport where no one really knows about it and does it to where we get enough schools and teams to be able to be like a fully fledged NCA sport.
Ah, okay, no, that's pretty cool. And yeah, I guess nice to be part of the front wave of, I guess, the triathlon within the system there. And for you then, just to start the episode off, can you briefly introduce yourself as an athlete?
Yeah, so I've been doing triathlon my entire life. My entire family has done triathlon. Both my parents were professionals, and all my sisters did it. So it was kind of a natural progression to take. I went up through the ranks in cross country. I got a few British titles and raced for England a few times, and then sort of moved more into racing for triathlon internationally. Went to Europeans and Worlds as many times as I could as a youth and junior. This past year was my first year as under 23. So now just slowly starting to progress into the senior region, I guess.
Wow, that's really exciting and also quite a unique angle there coming from a family that's got that, professional athlete and triathlete on both sides. And your sisters, are they older, younger? Have they gone down the pro route?
Yeah, so all three of them did. They're all older than me. I think there's around 7 years, 9 years, and 10 years between us all. So they all did it for different reasons. They sort of stopped. My eldest still does a lot of high rocks, which is I blows my mind every single time because I don't know how she lifts those weights. But both my parents do high rocks as well now, so I sometimes I'll FaceTime in and watch them do it. But so they still stay very active. But yeah, I think it was just they wanted to do other things, and I think it was we started it so young as well.
Mm.
Like I was going on training camps when I was a baby, so
Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, for sure, I can see on your Power of 10, you've got sort of 5 years under 11. So definitely it has been a while and sounds like Hydrox is where it's at for you in the future, potentially.
no, I'll leave that to her. I think I did. I went to the gym the other day and did an upper body session for the first time in my life, and
Oh,
my arms hurt very, very much today. So I'll leave that.
that's really interesting. I'm surprised it was your first upper body session, having competed at such a high level in a sport that involves sort of swimming. You would have thought you'd done that already.
Yeah, I mean, I had a because you get a lot of strength from swimming itself, and that's kind of the way I like to go. I've had an ongoing shoulder injury for the last 7 years, so and it just chooses when it likes to flare up a bit like Achilles when you run. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it doesn't. So we just found that leaving upper body is sort of like we do some stuff, but nothing like bicep curls or lat pull downs or anything like that. So my muscles were yeah, a bit screaming today, but it's okay.
Well, at least you made them work, and I guess that'll be exciting from a sort of gains potential moving forwards. I take it then that your plan is to go that pro triathlon route.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. when I was younger, I love running, and it was something that I thought that I potentially could go into. And then COVID hit, and it definitely, I had I was running really well in COVID, and then
Mm.
I had quite a bad injury. I I did a front handspring, and I landed and I popped the joint capsule in my knee. And when I first did it, I thought, oh no, I've broken my leg. And so I had to call my dad to come pick me up, who's also my coach. So I was like dreading the phone call to him. I was like, I'm so sorry. Obviously, he just cared that I was okay, but in my head, I was like, oh no. And yeah, I couldn't walk without that. I couldn't walk for months. I had to use crutches, and I only really started running again in December. And then obviously when the world kind of opened up again, triathlon was just that main focus. And then I came out to America, and I kind of missed the cross country season there. So I do a bit here. So I guess that's where running's kind of fallen away a little bit. Um, so yeah, I think triathlon's definitely where I head down. But I think the thing I definitely will miss about being in America will be being able to run track, because I found a new love for 1500. So, and I think if GB wasn't so strong, maybe I would try again. But
Yeah, no, it's true. The field is just ridiculously strong in the UK. It's like if you can get another passport, then quite a lot of the top girls probably could make it somewhere else. But gosh, how unfortunate. Do you have sort of any gymnastics going on, or was it just having a bit of fun? And yeah, because I mean, you didn't really compete between April 2021, February 2023. I mean, that's a really long time.
yeah, I mean, it was obviously COVID as well, so there wasn't really any races. I think I did gymnastics when I was very young, but this was simply me and my friends messing around. I grew up very active, so I was always trying new things and climbing trees and bruising myself, and like yeah. So I think it was just I was messing around, and I was very tight from a run session that day, and it kind of happened. But yeah, I think the big difficulty for me with running as well is when it's through COVID, my I started struggling a lot with eating, and something I found
Mm.
difficult was trying to come back to running when struggling so much with eating as a triathlete. Obviously, I look around on the start line, and I'm quite muscular. I've got a bit more of a swimmer's build, and I look around at the girls around me, and they're just a lot smaller than me. And I think that that's kind of how I need to be. And so I kind of made the decision that I wouldn't really run just by itself, at least until I'd sorted out what was going on. So yeah, that's why I kind of stepped away, I think, a bit from it and focused more on triathlon.
No, that's interesting to hear. And yeah, it's such a difficult one, and such a shame that kind of narrative is often pushed that, or in the past, especially, there's a lot of smaller being slightly seen more often or sometimes put on a pedestal. And yeah, it's really difficult. And I know a lot of people have mentioned how sort of eating related challenges rose dramatically during COVID, just as a means of sort of control as well as other things. So that makes a lot of sense, I suppose, the timing potentially being around there. But gosh, no, it sounds like there's definitely going to be a lot to dive into today. And it sounds like, you've probably built a lot of sort of experience and gained a lot of valuable knowledge through the journey that you've had. So a couple few questions. For you, what's the number one piece of advice that someone's given you or that you have for yourself?
Um, excuse me. I I think one that sort of encompasses it all is I was at a World Championships in Montreal a few years ago, and I was quite nervous. The year before hadn't gone well, and I was sat there with one of the coaches, Steve, and we were talking about the race, and he said, "Look, just be brave." And I wrote it on my wrist, and since then, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. I've written on my wrist before every race, and anytime I will talk to my friends or give them advice before a race, it's just be brave. And so I think in terms of yeah, that's probably the best advice I've ever been given.
I absolutely love that. Simple to the point, but clearly so effective. And for you, what was it being brave against? Was that fear of failure? Was that nerves? Was that setting high expectations for yourself? What was the underlying cause for that?
I think the reason I loved it so much is because it encompasses different things in different situations,
Mm.
and I think that's why I love it. You could it's whether it's being brave in a situation where someone's attacked off the front and you need to be brave and go after them, or whether it's you're standing on the start line and you can feel your nerves getting the best of you, and it's be brave, come back, relax. I think it's just that trigger word to whatever's tricking your mind at that moment. I think your mind plays such a big part in your sport, and people don't realize it enough sometimes how detrimental it can be. And so having that trigger word to just bring you back and remind you that you're in control, I think it's just helped me so much.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And yeah, I guess that's another layer that triathlon has, maybe more so than just typical running, in that you've got probably a lot more tactics going on there in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have three disciplines. Obviously, it ranges from sometimes races are half an hour, sometimes they're 9 hours. I do not do the 9 hour one.
That is long. That is very
That's
long.
too long. My parents did Ironman, and every time people see me, is that what you're going to transition? No, I will. I'm struggling to get my head around doing a 2 hour race right now. So
And
I
rightly so.
it's very long, but I think that's the point. It's just very yeah, you have so many different aspects that you can encompass into it, and there's so many different points that you can use it. So I think having that, and I was in Abu Dhabi early this year, and I wrote it on my wrist, and we were lining up to do check-ins and things, and a couple of the girls saw it and they said, like, I really like that. I like that idea, and you should get it tattooed so everyone can see it. One of them joked about having it tattooed on my forehead. So I think it's also nice just reminding other people of that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. You touch on kind of other people there, and I guess kind of looking to foster a more, I don't know, supportive environment. Maybe I'm not sure what it's like in triathlon. I don't know if you're kind of quite friendly with the other girls in the circuit, or if it's quite a hostile.
I'd say it's like every sport. You have groups of people who like making it hostile and have that sort of it's all about me, which is in this it's
Mm.
that's their choice, and that's absolutely fine. I'm very chatty. I like talking to people, making friends with people. And so my friends mean I have obviously I love loads of people in triathlon, but I obviously have my closest friends to me. So and I think it's nice because even if your race doesn't go well, if they succeed, you're genuinely just so proud of them. And when you're in a race, it's fun. You're in a bike group together and you're working or you're off the front and it's or you're chasing together or you're running together. And if you're in the swim and you look to your left or the right and you see them there, it's like, oh hey. And so it's just it makes racing so much more fun for me if I have my friends around me. And I think yeah, I'd say in a general way it is a really nice environment, and yeah, I,
Yeah.
I love it.
No, that's great to hear. And I think for sure it is very true. You've kind of got negative energy and positive energy. And, you can have the same amount of energy, but ultimately, when you come at something from a sort of positive angle or looking to add things as opposed to prevent things happening, I think that's a much more effective mindset, and leads to a lot more success and happiness. So no, I think that's a great way to be. And then for you, what are three things that you value for just happiness and success, overall within your life, for creating success within your sport?
I think time management's a big one. I think being a student athlete is very difficult, and especially over here in the States, they put big emphasis on academics. You're not just a student, you're not just an athlete, you're a student, which is why I came out here because it was so important to me. Um, I think the ability to know, I don't know a word to describe it in this, but the ability to know when it's time to work hard.
Mm.
I think I love having fun with my friends at training. It's my favorite thing. And if you see my Instagram reels, you'll see that we like messing around, but it's sort of knowing when it's time or at a race, it's time to lock in and get to work. Um, and I think the last one would be probably just creating a nice environment to be in. I think you obviously sometimes you had to train alone, but I think being able to create an environment where people were around you in a positive setting and you can push each other, and it's that whole thing of show me your group, I'll show you where you're going to end up kind of thing. So I think yeah, those the people I surround myself with is extremely important.
No, I love that. Time management, let's call it situational awareness, and creating that friendly environment. And it sounds like for you, people are quite important. I'm guessing you're a people person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have my days where I just want to lie in bed all day, but I definitely I yeah, I like making friendships and maintaining them, definitely.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great, and also interesting in that I think, there's the two ways to go. You can do more alone or training together, but I guess it comes down to your sort of natural personality type and who you are as a person. And if you are someone who's more sort of friendly or sociable, then training in a group environment or having people around you probably does lead to overall success. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I completely understand how people can train alone because sometimes I do it. Well, I do it quite a lot, and it can be quite relaxing sometimes. But I mean, my favorite things is just being able to go for long rides with my friends and laugh and chat and have fun. And I think it just makes training. It's training as play. It's making training fun. And I think sometimes people forget that, and we get lost in the fact that it's our job and we have to get somewhere. And I think it's we need to stop sometimes and just enjoy the journey because as as cliche as it sounds, I think people often really do forget that. And we don't have long in the sport. It's maybe a 10-year portion of our life, 15 of racing at the top, obviously, if we've been doing it since we were young. But so enjoy it. I think that's what I love about being with my friends.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely. Yeah, enjoy it for sure. And I guess then for you, you talk about, sometimes it being something that gets forgotten. And I think that's very, very true. It's so easy when your normal continually raises and raises and raises for things to get lost somewhere along the way. Have you therefore experienced a time where maybe that balance did flip a little bit too far in the kind of lock-in direction?
100%. I mean, it used to be every year, every Christmas. I used to sit down with my mum after training, after the season, and I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm scared. I can't do this. And I think every single time I'd then go to Portugal and I'd bring it back. And we go on a training camp and I'd sort of remember while I was doing it. But I think there's so many occasions. I mean, if a race goes badly, if a training session goes badly, it's just always straight away that everything's over. And if a race goes badly, especially, I mean, it's when I go to a world championships and something happens and I crash or I get a stitch or the race just doesn't go to plan. It's I've messed up everything. And it's something I tell my friends to do a lot, and I do all the time, is have a lock screen of myself when I was younger, of maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, when it was just pure joy with the sport. And every time I go to a race now, I make that younger me my lock screen, just to remind myself that at the end of the day, yes, it is important how I do in a race, and but what matters is that I'm living the life that she wanted to live, and it's making that younger you proud. And I think it's very easy to look forward and think the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, but sometimes you do just have to look back and think how far you've come. And it's like going into Abu Dhabi, I was terrified, but when I look back and think there's no way I'm racing a WTCS right now, and sort of shifted the mindset of it, it became this incredible experience. And I think just little tricks like that have helped me so much.
No, wow, that's really great to hear. And yeah, a great top tip there. Put something on your screen. Maybe it's your younger self, like with Beth, or maybe it's something else. But I think it's really great you touch on the importance there of sort of reminding yourself why you're doing it, making sure that you are, enjoying it. And yeah, because it is a lot. It definitely is a lot. And I imagine triathlon as well. I don't know how many hours a week do you typically kind of commit to training for that?
I mean, it can vary so much. I mean, you've got the top guys who maybe don't study training in the 30 hours. I mainly stick around 20 hours for now, give or take, up or down, depending on the school week, but it varies so much. There's so much variety in it.
Gosh, no, can't even imagine where you begin to sort of fit that in. I mean, out of curiosity, what is a typical training week? Where do these 20-ish hours go?
I mean, I'm very schedule orientated. So at the start of the year, I make my dad sit down with me and I create a schedule, then he goes over it and changes things. And so I mainly do the same thing every single week, which some people would find really boring, but I love it because I just love knowing what I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. So I have every minute of my day planned out when I'm at school. Um, so roughly, it's on Mondays, I'll do a swim and a bike. Tuesdays will be a run session and a easy bike in the afternoon. Wednesdays is a bike session in the morning, then a swim session, then run, and then gym. Thursday would be a recovery day at the moment, so that's more like a easy swim or an easy run or both maybe. Um, yeah, Friday then goes on to a run, bike, and swim, and Saturday is normally the long ride day with a little run off, and then gym, and then Sunday would be a long run and then a swim again, and then obviously classes.
Gosh, wow, I've never had quite so many sessions all in one day. That must be a lot to manage, and I can completely see why you might be quite schedule orientated in that respect. And earlier you mentioned being quite, well, it seems maybe quite all or nothing potentially. Correct me if I'm wrong in sort of mindset. If something goes wrong then and you can't quite manage to keep up with the schedule, or maybe something goes a bit off, how do you kind of cope with that? Does it kind of send you to one extreme or the other?
Um, I would definitely say it's a work in progress. It used to definitely the all or nothing mentality used to be a lot worse when I was younger. With everything. It was either I hit the session or I don't hit the session, or I win the race or I don't win the race. And obviously, it sounds very simple, but to me, it was the end of the world. And I think that's definitely something as I've grown up, I've been able to keep control over, and it's now not letting training peaks control me. So if I have a 90-minute ride, I can't do that today. I'm going to do an hour ride, and it's not letting it ruin my entire day because I've missed 30 minutes of my bike. And so I think it's, I wouldn't say there's necessarily a tip, but I think it's just, again, bringing back to the importance of what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And in the big scheme of things, it's really not that important to do that extra half an hour if that's not what I need to do that day. So I think it's sort of taking control and trying to listen to my mind a lot more as well.
I like that, trying to listen to your mind, but I guess then also in some respects trying to override it. And I know I'm very much the same, it's either completely all out or minus 1,000%. And I'm not really sure why either. And I think a lot of people within sort of sport or running especially are fairly extreme here or there. What do you think the reason is that it's kind of like, oh, I'll go for the 2 hours, or the other option feels like it should be nothing? Why do you think it's so hard to find a middle ground?
I think it's the way we were brought up. I think it's the in sport. I mean, I can't speak for people who haven't grown up in sport. Obviously, I don't have that point of view. But for me, my everything in my life's been competitive since I was a child. I mean, I had three older sisters. I would play out in the streets in my free time with my friends, playing any sort of exercise game. So everything's just competition. So you I think that'd be the first thing, is that it's sort of that competitive for me anyway. It's like, well,
Mm.
what's she doing? What's she doing? What's she doing? And you, even if you don't think about it in the back of your head, I think you're always thinking about what your competitors are doing. And I think that's definitely something, again, as I've gotten older, I've been able to step back from and think it doesn't matter what they're doing, it's what I'm doing that's important. But I think the second thing is it just means so much, like in a non-cliche cringy way. It's for sport, for a lot of people, sports everything. And so I think it means it would be the same as someone going to a 9 to 5 job and not getting a job report done on the day. It's just, or whatever people do at 9 to 5 jobs. I'm not sure. I've never been in one. But it's that whole idea. And I think sometimes I do struggle with it when people say that separating myself from my triathlon identity. And so I think that's why as well. It's just, it means so much, and you want to give everything and give 100% to everything all the time. But sometimes 100% to yourself is taking it back. And I think listening to your mind. And I remember a few years ago, my physio gave me a job of just miss a day of training, any day of training this week, just miss a session, one session. Took me a month before I could do it because I was terrified. And I finally did it. And so now every so often, not all the time, but I'll say, okay, I really don't feel like doing this today. Not just because I'm lazy, but just mentally things have gotten a lot. I'm in control. I'm going to take today off. And I think having that ability to say when you need to take time off and not just take the mick with it and be lazy, I think there's a big difference there. And I think it's really important.
Wow, no, absolutely two great points there, focusing on self and also listening to self. And I suppose the two feed into each other in that you almost have to stop worrying about what other people are doing and be able to then let in your own voices and be guided by what your body feels like doing. But it is a difficult one, isn't it? When you want to give 100% and you're there and you've got those attributes. But so often in sport, especially with, a lot of females and males as well, that those can turn against people for the worst and end up being their biggest enemy. But it sounds like you've made quite good progress then with that over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think nerves and pressure have kind of been around for me since I was about 11. I
Mm.
remember like on the start line of a schools race in Sussex, being terrified, mainly of the gun because it used to terrify me and still does.
They were
Uh,
loud. They were
they're
really
so
loud.
loud.
I think I have tinnitus from them. Yeah.
I was 8 years old and suddenly this gun goes off.
Yeah.
And so, um, yeah, so I was standing on the sideline and I ran to my mum on the sideline, started hugging her, crying like, I can't do this, I can't race. And then the gun went off, and I saw everyone running away, all the girls and boys, and I was like, wait, now I want to go. And so I went back to the start line and then chased them all down. And I think I don't know where I came. I think I ended up winning it. We were nine, so and I was probably the only one training. But
Yeah,
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 I
you
think
did win. You did win.
no. So I think when I was then that it started kickstarted things of just being terrified before races. My mum would share a room with me, obviously, and would hear me sleep talking and going through the race in my head. And I think when I was about 13, I was standing on a start line with my dad on the side before the race, and he just looked at me and said, "You really need to figure this out. Like, you can't spend the rest of your career like this." And not in any form of harsh way, but it's sometimes tough love's what's needed, and it gets to a point where you do need to start figuring out. And so I spent a very long time trying to figure out how to handle the pressure and how to handle the nerves. And I think being a 12-year-old 11-year-old, having parents coming up to you before a race telling you that, oh, there's no point of us being here, you're going to win. And I think whether they think it's trying to help you or not, I don't know, but it definitely didn't help me. I
Yeah.
Anyone standing on that start line can win that race, and that's the mentality I go in from any age or any level I go at. If you're on the start line, you have the ability to win. So I think, yeah, it took a long time, but
Mm.
slowly and steady, I've started figuring out. But I think I have had the advantage of doing it from a very young age to be able to figure out what works for me.
Gosh, yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot of pressure, and I mean, definitely keen to get onto that sort of unique setup, entering the sport from such a professional setup with so much potential pressure. And it is a fine line, isn't it, when kind of dealing with junior talent or young athletes, and how do you manage that pressure? Because that expectation, it does build. And for you at the time, was it more fear of disappointing your parents or disappointing yourself, or was it sort of a different potential fear underpinning those nerves?
That's a very good question. I think it kind of encompasses it all. I did, and I want to set like very clear. I did not have pushy parents in the way of like, if you don't win, like I would see some parents on the sidelines telling their kids, like, if you don't win, you can walk home and all things like
Yeah.
that. Like that never happened. I think I grew up very, very independent. I would go to races and we get to the car park and my parents would do their thing and I'd do my thing because they had to coach. So they'd have parents and kids coming up to them, and I was sometimes 11 and I'd be like, okay, bye, I love you. See you at the end. And I go and do my own thing. I remember I was 14 and I just qualified for my first Europeans. And I think it took, not by any fault of their own, but it took me about 45 minutes before I could even see my parents because everyone was talking to them and wanting to talk about their races. And I understand, and it's completely normal now. And it's, if anything, it's made me the athlete I am today because it's given me so much independence. So I think that's definitely a plus side of it. But I think I was scared of losing.
Mm.
I hadn't lost, and I think, and that's not to sound cocky. It's just from a very young age I'd never lost, and so I think I was scared to lose, and I yeah, I mean, I think that's the only thing I think that can underpin it. I think the fear of not winning, and I think in the back of my head as well, I wanted to do it for my parents and for me as well. I wanted to make them proud, and I wanted to make my sisters proud and my friends and things like that. And for some reason in my head, I had it that if I didn't win a Sussex race when I was 11, that I was never going to make the Olympic team in however many years. So I don't know why that came into my mind, but I think that's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, from a young age. I think it's probably something I still struggle with, to be honest.
Gosh, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? And yeah, it is a lot of pressure. And I know, I mean, I had a good run when I was younger at one point. I think I had, yeah, national title 3 years in a row. But the first one's great. And after that, it is just almost you don't want to lose it. And it becomes very, very stressful and not so great anymore. And I guess then for you, with that environment, let's get into that a little bit more. You mentioned sort of already maybe eyeing up the Olympics, wanting to make sure that, you're on the path to that as your 11-year-old self thought. How did you kind of enter the sport in terms of when did you start competing? When did that switch flick inside your head in that you were like, I want this, I want to do this? And did you start running separately to triathlon, or which one kind of came first?
So again, yeah, I've done triathlon since I was a baby. I mean,
Okay.
it's that whole idea of I could run before I could walk. I go to training sessions with my mum and run around chasing them. And I think, yeah, I've just been in the environment since I was a baby. I did my first race, I think when I was 8. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
as soon as I could, maybe 6 or 7 to be honest. Um, and then it just went from there. Running was just always something I did to keep fit in the winter, to be honest. I never intended on focusing on running. I love triathlon too much, and I do love running track and love running cross country, but it was just more something I did in the winter to keep the racing and keep fit. Um, for me, it was never the be all or end all goal.
Mm.
Um, and I sometimes would find I get more nervous for running than I do for triathlon, to be honest. So yeah, and then I just slowly started progressing through the ages. But to be honest, I think as soon as I was just engulfed from it at such an age, I've always wanted to go to the Olympics. I mean, who doesn't? I think any athlete who wants to go somewhere in sport, they want to go to the Olympics. It's the goal, it's the pinnacle. So I think that's been in there from a really young age. And then I think when I first went to my Europeans when I was 14, I think that was probably the first point where I was like, I could do this, and it's not just a dream anymore. It could be a reality, and yeah. So I think obviously there's a very long way to go, but it's not starting from square one, and it's not starting from zero. So I think yeah, it's probably been there since I was a child, but I think when it first hit that this is actually what I want to do and this is where I want to go was probably that first European experience of wow, like this is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of athletes sort of bring up a memorable experience like their first Europeans or their first Worlds as being kind of that moment when it really sinks in that actually, yeah, I can do this. I can turn this into a reality and I am on the right path for doing this. I guess then as well, I want to touch on the fact that, your dad is your coach. Was he always coaching you from the start? And when did that formally kind of start?
So I would say my mum coached me for a very long time. And she kind of so in our club that we have Bodyworks back home, my mum does the younger ones and my dad does the older ones. It's just the system they've worked. So yeah, I was training with my mum for a really long time, and then slowly when I hit that 12, I started swimming with my dad. So with the older guys, with the squad, 11, 12. So then I kind of had two coaches. I had my mum and my dad. Um, and then, so that became a bit difficult, only from the point of view of that they're just very different in terms of the way they approach things, they approach training. And so when I hit about 14, I sort of said that I need to kind of decide now which direction I'm going to go. And I think at the time, my mum was also the academy coach. So from that point of view as well, it was sort of having two full-time coaches coaching me, and it was a lot of input, and I think I just got quite overwhelmed with everything. So as a sort of natural progression, I went into my dad's squad just because I wasn't a child anymore, so I needed to move out of the younger ones into the older ones. So I think that's kind of how that transition worked. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I some people, I think when I was younger it was very difficult to be candid, having parents as coaches, and it was very difficult to navigate, and having such successful parents as well in the sport. I think I didn't actually realize how successful they were until I grew up a bit and people would know who they were, and it was I can't think of the word, but it was an interesting experience the first time I went abroad and people knew my name because of my parents, and it was difficult, but I think now I love it. It's I have on my doorstep, a phone call away, I have my mum's input, I have my dad's input of two of the greatest triathletes of their time. And not many people can say that. So it's I think sometimes people forget what they've done. And yeah, I mean, proud daughter. So I
Yeah.
love talking about them. But I think yeah, it's a very sort of, and yeah, I guess talking then more about me and my dad, it was a very unique opportunity to have my dad as my coach. And I think having sort of my mum's input into it, but having my dad sort of overseeing things, and just that whole attitude, he's in it for the right things, and he knows me better than anyone. He knows how to act, what tactics to use, when that training needs to go up, down, and I think I trust him beyond measure. So I think that's why it just works so well.
Yeah, no, that's really lovely to hear. And it does seem that the sort of father-daughter or parent-athlete coaching relationship can be very, very effective. I suppose there's that hugely holistic approach, but also I can imagine that it would have been challenging and definitely very unique to have such well-established parents sort of growing up. Okay, and so two questions. Firstly, briefly, sort of who were your parents? What was the highest level that they kind of got to, and what were them, I guess, standout traits or attributes that have them so well known for people who maybe aren't aware? And then second to that, I suppose as well, you being the fourth child of a whole triathlete family, was it very triathlon focused at home? Was dinner time kind of, what's everyone's training being, or was it quite separate? I mean, from an identity perspective, what was it like?
Um, so in terms of my parents, listing it off, I probably couldn't actually say, to be honest. They I think the titles of world champion, European champions kind of come to mind.
Yeah.
Ironman was definitely the thing back then. And then they slowly started to transition. I think my dad, and I could be wrong, maybe my mum, I would need to look, but they competed at the first ever world championships for like Olympic distance. I think my dad medaled. Um, and so, yeah, just so much experience, so many championships, so many. I mean, my dad was an Olympic coach four times, going away there. My mum's an England talent squad coach. So they're both on like different pathways. And so I think the experience there is just, it's incredible, to be honest. When I actually think about it, I'm very lucky to have that. Um, and in terms of, I think that's probably one thing that, again, candidly, we did struggle with a bit at home, is it just was triathlon. I think it's difficult to not make everything about triathlon when your entire family does it. I think we do have a good balance now. I mean, we've just had a baby. My sister's just had a baby, so we have a nephew in the house now, and he's definitely made everything a lot less about triathlon. Everything's about him now. So, but I think being the youngest, I just kind of wanted to do everything my sisters did, and I think I looked up to them all in enormous amounts, in all different ways, in all different aspects, and I think I just wanted to be like them. Probably too much of their annoyance, I'd follow them around the house when their friends came over and sort of wanted to do what they did. But I think it's just very unique. Like, it would always be, parents would never understand. And I think having coaches parents when I was younger, I thought was a bad thing, but actually I don't think I'd be the athlete I am today without it. I mean, sometimes I would tell them my goals and I would say I want to do this, this and this, but then I would be pulled away by my friends into the whole idea of going out and having sleepovers and staying up late and maybe starting to drink and do all these things, which in small amounts is okay, but when I had a goal, it would be difficult, and I would think sometimes, I think I would resent that. But now looking back, I think I see, being at college, I now understand what they meant, and so I think it is a very unique sort of experience to have.
Absolutely. No, it's really interesting because oftentimes that all-in approach can be kind of seen in quite a negative light, I think. But I think it is different in your case when the true authentic nature of the situation is that it is very triathlon driven. That was both your parents' profession and they were successful, and your whole family. I guess it's kind of different in that whilst the focus might be triathlon, it's not, I don't know, somehow it's probably not as negative as if it were just a regular family and things were being taken away, because I suppose nothing's being changed or passed up upon. You're just living the life as it is in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that I've always been very aware of from a very young age is when I go to a race and I'd be standing with my mum and she'd be talking to a kid and their dad or their mum, or mainly, and to be honest, it would normally be the dad, and it would be, oh yeah, we won this race, but he lost this race, and we did this well, but he messed this up. And I would always say to my mum when they left that I was like, why did he say we then he? And that was just an innocent question, and she said it's funny that you noticed that because I do too. And I think that's what one thing that's would be nice again, which is nice again about having that relationship with my parents, is it's not I messed up this or I messed up this. It's me and my now it's me and my dad. So me and my dad are in this together. We do this, we win together, we lose together, we mess up together. And he's done his job in the coaching. It's my job in the race, but we're always together. And I think like he'll always say to me before the race, just I'm on your shoulder. Just remember I'm there and like I'm with you. And I think having that it was, I think a lot of people from the outside would view it as an unloving relationship, because it would be very much, I would get to the race course and do my own thing, but that's what I loved. They don't like getting in the way. And I think, whereas actually a lot of kids, I think I had it better, because they would have their parents shouting at them and making it feel like it's all on them. Whereas with me, I had parents who would tell me that they're with me. And I think they can offer a different perspective if the race didn't go well, of right, let's talk about it, what happened. And I think it's created that sort of logical mind that I have today, of being able to reflect on a race and take things away. And I always say that now, and I think this is only because of the way I grew up, of if I finish a race but I can say, well, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, and I haven't done this, then I can't be sad of the result, because I've not done everything I can. And so if I'm standing here and this is as fit as I can be, and this is all I can do, then that's something to worry about. But if I'm standing here saying, really, I've not been consistent with training, or I haven't been sleeping well, or I haven't been eating well, or I've been sick, then you can be sad for a bit about the race, obviously, or the training session. But then it's also looking back and thinking, well, if I've got all these things that I haven't been doing, then how can I be sad? And I think I wouldn't have learned that coping mechanism if it wasn't for my parents. So
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And yeah, it's really good to hear that you have kind of got that from being around there, and that's something that's been of benefit for you. How often then are you on the start line, or the finish line, actually, in this case, and able to say, yes, I've done everything that I feel like I should have done, and I'm happy with the result? You know, how often are you happy with your result, or is there always kind of a lot of things that you find yourself picking at for improvement?
that I remember 2 times.
Okay.
The first one was so, talking about the idea of never winning, of always having to win. I had
Yeah.
2 years in a row I won. So I went to British Champs my first time for cross country, and I came 32nd. And and again, there is nothing wrong with that. But as a 11, 12-year-old who hadn't lost a race, I was horrified. And I spent the entire time crying. And I said to my mum, this is not happening again. So I went back, and the next year I came back and I won. And that was
Yes.
the first big cross country win I had. And it was actually the first time I'd ever taken the tape of a race. And I remember I was like, this is incredible. And I asked to keep it, but they wouldn't let me. I was quite sad. But anyway, so then the next year again, then I won it again. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is incredible. And then that's when English schools started. So I won that. And then my biggest competition at the time was B Wood. So then she came and she won English schools. So I was like, huh. I was like, okay. So, and then the next year came around, and this year she beat me, and I was second at British Champs. And English schools was the week later, and I was hungry. Like, it was, I've never felt the whole week, I've never been so focused. Still to this day, I don't think I've ever been this focused, because it's not the right mindset to have at all. But in my head, it helped me in this moment. And it's probably going to sound very bad, but in my head, that was my medal you've just taken. And it was, it was, it sounds bad, but at the end of the day, it helped me so much. And then, so that going into that English schools that next week, which was the first time, and I think it was the only time I ever won it,
Yeah.
was just, I did everything leading into it. And I executed my plan perfectly. So it to a T of what me and my dad had spoken about, and it worked. And I remember my dad coming over at the end, and he'd been crying, and and if you knew my dad, I think I can count on one hand how often he's cried. And he was like, no, it's the wind, it's the wind. And I think just that whole experience of I did everything, and it's not just because I'd won the race, but I laid everything out, and it just went to plan. So I think that was the first time. And then the second time was in Abu Dhabi, just this past few months. I finished the race, and I said to it was the relay, so obviously it's not like a position by yourself, but I said to my dad, I couldn't have done anything else. It was really early on in the season, and I did all the training. I'm happy with my swim, I'm happy with my bike, and I'm happy with my run. And I think potentially there's other cases of that, but I think even when I win a race, I look and I think of things that I could have done differently and where I could have done that. And I think, yeah, so off the top of my head, there's only a couple times I've actually probably ever finished a race thinking, yeah, that was good.
Gosh, that's really interesting to hear. And yeah, a couple of things. Do you consider yourself a perfectionist, or do you have perfectionist traits, or what's your kind of mindset around that?
Yes, I think the way I would word it is I'm extremely competitive. And I think that's probably been just growing up in the household I've been in.
Mm.
like me and my sisters, I think the funny thing is everyone thinks I'm the most competitive, but I think actually my sisters are more competitive than me. And so, like my sister Chloe, for example, how many pull-ups can you do? How many I can do five. Up, you can do one. Up. And so it would just be little things like that anytime we talk, or she'll call me and I haven't weren't speaking to her a month, and that's what we'll talk about. And so it's just it's being brought up in that environment, I think, created that competitive edge. And I think sometimes it is perfectionism, and I think, but you'll never reach that. And I think I my dad will send me things, videos on it, but it's so true that you can keep striving for perfection, but you're never going to get there. And you can keep chasing it. And I don't, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with chasing it because you're never going to reach it. But as long as you accept the fact you're never going to reach perfection, because even in those races, there would have been things that I could have changed. And I think, but for me in that moment, I executed it. But I think there's a difference between executing and perfection. And I I just don't think perfection's attainable. And so, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to chase. And yeah, I think that's probably the mindset I'd have on it.
That's great to hear. And yeah, very, very true. Never will achieve perfection. And I guess then I'd class you as kind of a maximizer type. And I suppose then that makes sense as to why you're able to leave a lot of races feeling content with what you've done, because you're aware that, yeah, you have to sort of draw a line at a certain point. And I suppose that's probably been a very healthy thing mindset wise moving forwards. And just to sort of touch on kind of that rivalry you talk about there with B Wood, quite funny. I actually know her really well. She's really, really lovely. I think the two of you would actually get on really well. But if that hadn't gone to plan, would that have broken you in that moment? Or if you hadn't have had kind of the results that you did, and you'd had sort of, I suppose, you considering yourself to have done everything right, but then it backfired on you. Do you think that would have changed anything, or has that happened to you on an occasion before?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, I love B. She's I haven't spoken to her in a very long time because I haven't run, but I I love competition, and I think like some of my closest friends, Anna Headley, who you had on the other
Yeah.
week, she's my best friend, and we've been competing together since we were so young. But it's such a healthy friendship in the way that I just want to see her succeed. So it's like if we're running together, I remember one race we did together, we ran the whole 5K together at the try, and it was my favorite race because I was running with my best friend, and seeing her come back from everything she's been through has been inspiring, really. To be honest, a lot of people wouldn't have tried to come back. So I think those healthy relationships with your competitors is fine. And at the time, I welcomed it. I loved having it someone to compete against, and so she was an incredible, yeah, is an incredible runner. So that was the first thing. But in terms of that race, I think, oh, this is a difficult question. Um, I would definitely say there's been races that I have trained for. The one that comes to mind
Yeah.
is we had a try. My first world champs was in Portugal, and it was meant to be. It was delayed by a year because of COVID,
Mm.
and so I'd basically been training for this race for nearly 2 years, and it was my only focus. And it was my first world champs, and it was a bit of a roller coaster of being cancelled, moved from Bermuda to Portugal, and it was a whole thing. And I got there, and the swim went great, and then I got onto the bike, and horrible. And I came about 40th, and that was the worst I've ever come in a triathlon before. And I remember finishing the race and going and sitting on the beach with my dad and just crying, listening to the presentation happening behind me, and just saying to him, I don't know what else I could have done. I've trained for 2 years for this race, basically, and I put everything into it. And he, in at that point, he just hugged me and let me be sad about it. And I think the thing is there's definitely when I say that I'm able to reflect, it does not always mean that I can leave a race course and reflect. Sometimes it can be, I'll say to my parents, okay, just let me have till I get home, like in the car journey, whatever the journey is, or I don't let myself stay down for too long, but I definitely will feel the emotions of it. And so for me, for then it was, okay, I'm going to sit on this beach with my dad, and I'm going to sit there, and then I'm going to take away the emotion, and I'm going to look at it logically, because if I stay in it too long, then it's going to completely overwhelm me. And I think
Mm.
it, and I think, to be honest, it makes me hungry. I've learned how to use it. And I mean, that's exactly what that race had done. If I hadn't have won that race, then it probably would have made me hungry for the next. And I think I wouldn't have necessarily, I mean, B was incredible. She was dominating at the time. So I think it wouldn't have been a bad person to lose to. But I think that's the other thing is coming second isn't a loss. And I think at that age in my head it was, and it was the end of the world. And whereas now I look back and I see there's a girl in triathlon at the moment who hasn't lost a race yet. She's a junior, and she came second at this year's junior champs instead of winning. And the commentator who was interviewing her, the way he questions it about making it so, oh, so you didn't win. So this girl's just come second in the world, second in the world, and you're making, and she's disappointed. Like when you think about it logically, it's she's 16 and she's just come second in the world. Like second, I just said it over and over again to myself, and it really helped put things into perspective for me of the fact that it's very easy to look at, okay, I didn't win, but actually you still did really well. And I think you can't have that mentality if you're always going to win the race. And so yeah, I think if I hadn't have won that race, then maybe it would have maybe it would have hurt for quite a bit of time. But I think I'm able now to, yeah, you deal with the emotion, you go away, you look at it logically, and I think it's part of the job.
I love that. You deal with the emotion, you go away, you look at it logically. I mean, such a great mindset. You know, it definitely takes strength of character to do that, but it is a very effective way to deal with adversity because, yeah, the events happened, you can't change it. And so often, like you say there, with the kind of second in the world situation, athletes are so hard on themselves. And if you sort of perspectivize it, let's say, it's not as bad, but that doesn't take away the sting. But no, that's a fantastic approach you have there. And yeah, just to, I guess, jump forwards a bit more now, you know, you speak about this being after COVID, maybe one of the performances you're least happy with. You also mentioned how around that time that was a handspring gate, and also some struggles with eating. Do you want to talk around a little bit more about that difficult time and how it was for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I starting in COVID, I started getting, like, just before COVID hit, that last English schools I had, is when I started struggling a bit with the food side of things. Just sort of, yeah, looking around at other girls on the start line and just that, why do I not look like them kind of idea. And then I
Under
started getting quite
17.
bad. Yeah, like I started getting quite bad panic attacks. And so the night before that English schools where I came third, I'd had I remember I had a really bad panic attack, and I was in the race and I was running for the win and I was exhausted, and it just taken so much out of me having that panic attack the night before. And I think, I mean, again, I'm not at all saying that's what lost me the race, but it definitely didn't help.
No,
Having
definitely, definitely.
that mental strain. So I think, yeah, that, and then that after that race everything shut down. And I think from that, after that race was when I kind of decided that I don't want to run right now, like in terms of have competitions, which wasn't an option anyway because the everything was shut down for COVID. So I think, yeah, that was when it just, to be honest, it was just up and down. I would have days of not eating, weeks of not eating, and then it would just be, and I was sort of trying to keep it to myself and had the panic attacks, and it was just a lot, to be honest. Trying to train on top of all of it, and then I got injured, and then you had the change of my school was shutting down, and sadly we lost my auntie to cancer a few months before that. So there was just a lot going on, and I think it was just thing after thing after thing after thing. And I think the eating was sort of a way to help control that. Um, and yeah, and then it got bad, and then I ended up doing a swim session, and I hadn't really been eating, and this was a few months into the line, and I ended up having to go to hospital and sort of just get like help from that point of view. And I think that was kind of a big turning point for me in terms of, okay, like I need to tell my parents and I need to get this sorted. And so I sat down with them, we talked everything through, and it was really the first time I'd spoken about it and said everything I was feeling. And yeah, I think it definitely isn't something we had through COVID. We had people come in and do interviews, and we had an old training partner who was very, very successful. She's older now, but she came in and she spoke to us and about her eating problems. And I went away and I spoke with her privately, and the way she described it, I said, "Does it get any easier?" And she said, "It's like asking an alcoholic. It's the same thing. It's not that you ever forget the feelings that you had, and it's not that every day isn't still a struggle, but it gets easier, and you just need to take away things that trigger it and learn ways of coping with it. But it's definitely something that I've still been working with now, and I think I'm Definitely a lot better than I was in COVID. But obviously there's lots of different things. I think when you get injured, it comes back. When you have a bad session, it comes back, and it's the first thing you blame. And I think I like talking about it from the point of view that I don't want other girls to fall into that trap, because when you fall down that rabbit hole, it's hard to get out of it.
Mm.
Um, and so I think it's such an important topic that's really not spoken about enough, especially in triathlon, to be honest, from that crossover from triathlon to running. And I think everyone tries to hide it and everyone tries not to talk about it, like everything with mental health. But the biggest thing you can do is talk about it. And if you speak about it, you take away its power. And I think, again, as cliche as that might sound, it completely changed everything for me. And having the ability to say to my mum, because obviously my mum understands, again, another benefit, she was an athlete. So I sit there, I call my mum and say, mum, I don't want to eat. And she'll call me and she'll talk to me and she'll be logical with me, and she'll call me while I eat, and I have a conversation with her while I eat, and it takes the distraction away, and having and learning different mechanisms. Like I've had the same breakfast every day for the last however many years, because it's just a mechanical thing. So I think there's lots of different ways you can do to help it, but I think talking about it is the most important thing that I learned from my journey with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing. And, so many brilliant points raised in everything that you said. And yeah, absolutely. I can imagine that potentially it is possibly more amplified in triathlon, just with there being so much more training and potentially a lot more pressure in that respect. But yeah, it is very interesting. And control often is kind of that thing that gets, I guess, given the underlying reason for an eating disorder. But guess again, then it is often food that people end up going for, as opposed to, I don't know, rearranging crayons in a crayon box or something. In terms of that, then, for you, where do you think that line between exercising control over what was a difficult time, there was a lot going on, and you were very young, and also potential changes in body image, and that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, it was really difficult at that time as well, because I'd grown a lot very quickly, and so for a long time I was very, very slim. And then suddenly I got muscle and I started getting a build, and I it was definitely difficult to look in the mirror and see that. And by no means was I big back then at all. Like, I'm bigger now than I was back then. So it's crazy to even think that. But in my head, it's just your mind playing tricks on you. It's not rational. And I think that's what's so important to understand, is the thoughts you're having are not rational. And I think to be honest as well, something that helped me, because I really it's every day, it's you fight with it. And I think something that helped me was when I was standing in the mirror with my sister before we were going out, and we were just to dinner, I think, and she was pregnant at the time, and we were talking so badly about ourselves, like, oh, I hate my forehead, or I hate my weight, and we both looked at each other, and she said, okay, we have to stop, because this baby is perfect. And I don't use perfect a lot, but for my nephew, I'll use it. And and he comes from, and I think that's the thing, is like, he comes from his mum, and it's you, everything bad you say about yourself is on this child. And I think that's the thing about, I love going back to younger me, and it really reminded me of that. And I think that's such a good coping mechanism for anyone, is if you, every time you say that something about yourself, get a picture of younger you up, like just smiling back at you. And I think it really puts everything back into perspective, of this is who you're doing this to, this is who you're saying this to. And this is, have that conversation with your younger self, write a letter to your younger self. I think those things are so valuable to sort of lock in now.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of power in words and rephrasing and reframing. And yeah, again, like you say, taking it back to the beginning, or the bare roots. And for sure, everything's got a sort of perspective, and if you put a positive spin on something, or make those conscious decisions, as hard as they may be, to turn those negative thoughts into, no, I'm beautiful, I'm womanly, or this is healthy, over time, 21 days apparently, things could help change. But nonetheless, it is so difficult. And do you want to elaborate a bit more then on some of those mechanisms that you now use to overcome sort of any negative thoughts that creep in, and maybe the biggest challenge that you faced, and how you overcame that with kind of your journey to a healthy place?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of going back to front, I think in terms of the biggest challenge, I think every day is a challenge. I wouldn't say there's been a point where it's been harder than others. I think there's just been points where I've been strong enough to do it and points where I haven't been strong enough to do it. And I think I think that idea of having, when you're going through something, because a lot of it is related to sport. So I think having that photo of younger you and sort of that reminder of like, this is who you're doing it to. And I think it can sometimes be a harsh thing to say, but it puts it into perspective. It's younger you. And I think that's so important. I think talking about it as well is when I start having those thoughts come in, I'll tell someone, I'll tell my mum, or I'll tell my dad, or I'll tell my sister, or I'll tell my friend, and I'll talk about it. Or, and I think the third thing will probably be is on top of the breakfast and the mechanism of having like a safe food. So when you feel that way of, when I start feeling that, okay, I don't want to eat and I can feel those thoughts coming in, okay, as if it's snack time, I'm going to have a banana, because I know for me that's a safe food. If it's breakfast time and I don't want to eat, I'll just have my normal breakfast. And I think it's just taking away the food side of things and turning it more mechanical. But I think that helped me a lot. But I think everything works for different people, and I think it's just figuring out what works for you. But I think there's no shame in talking about it, and there's no shame of having that as a problem. And I think that's the most important thing to come to terms with. But for people that are also helping you through that, like for friends who can see a friend that has that, I think the important thing to remember is until they want to be helped, you can't help them. And I know that from a personal experience of my friends trying to help me, and at the time I didn't want to be helped because I wanted to do it. And I think until you can shift your mind to the point where you don't want to do it, then you can't expect anyone to help you or be able to help you. And so that's when it's kind of, you need to figure out for yourself that whole idea of, okay, what's going on, why is this happening, and how can I prevent this from happening, and how can I talk about it? But otherwise you'll just go around in this cycle for ages.
No, that's a very good point there for sure. It definitely has to come from within. And yeah, two follow-up questions on that. Firstly, what makes a safe food safe? And secondly, how do you reach that point of feeling ready to take that action yourself?
I think a safe food feels safe for me. It feels different for everyone else. I think it's just knowing that it's something that is, I can't put a word in it, but it's like if I said to you right now, like, if like what's your go-to, it would be more like a go-to, something that you know isn't like it. For me it wouldn't be a donut, because for me, I think I love donuts, don't get me wrong, I'll either 12 Krispy Kreme and eat the whole thing in a night. But it's when I'm in that mindset, it's finding something that I know that's nutritious, it will give me some energy, and it's good. And I think that's a thing for everyone, it's different, and I think it's hard to sort of put a word in it. I just kind of have them, if that makes sense. And then in terms of what was the second question?
Yeah,
Sorry?
so reaching
I was
that
so
point.
focused on that one.
No, a great answer for sure as well. And no, it's around how did you reach that point of feeling ready to share? Because you speak about, maybe your friends wanting to help you, but you weren't ready. What allowed you to find that switch, or I suppose flick that switch into, okay, action time?
To be honest, I think it took me going to hospital to realize that
Yeah.
this isn't what I want. And I didn't realize, sort of, to be honest as well, it started to affect my training negatively. And I think, to be honest, is actually a more honest answer than the hospital. Rather than myself, it affected my training. And that worried me more than my own well-being, which is not but at the time it was, this is starting to affect my training now, this isn't okay. But whereas before it wasn't affecting my training, I thought it was helping, it is not helping. I now know that from a scientific point of view, from the degree I'm doing. So it's not helping. But I think it's definitely, and I was very lucky in my sense that I didn't lose my period or anything like that. But I know people that have, and I think if I had, that takes a long time to come back from. So I think it genuinely was that session that it started affecting my training. Okay, no, now I need to figure out what's going on. And I think that was the turning point that I sat down at the time with. We had another coach in our program who I've known since before I was born. And he helped me sort of come to my parents about it, because it's hard, not from a point of view of coaching, but telling your parents these things. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, they're your parents and they love you, and so it's scary, but they need to know so they can help you. So yeah, I'd say that was kind of the turning point for me with it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, for sure it is so tough that you did end up having to, go to hospital. And for sure as well, I think it's very powerful coming from you in that you kind of had a lot of success. You had an environment around you that was quite athletic focused, but still these same things sort of affect everyone in the same way. So I think there's a lot of value in you sort of sharing that journey. I guess then for you, is there anything that you'd want to say to someone who's in a similar position to you now?
I think if there's, it depends whether they're on their journey for the different type of advice, but I think the number one thing would just be to talk to someone. And sometimes it is easier to talk to someone that isn't, you don't necessarily care how they take the news. Like, for example, whether it is a
Mm.
therapist or my Instagram's always open. Since I've started posting, I've had girls messaging me about it, and I'll always respond. And I think it's talking about it to someone maybe who you don't feel like it's going to hurt by you telling them can be easier. And then they can help you figure out a way to tell people that you love, like your parents. So maybe it is going to your coach. For me, it was different because my coach was my dad. But whether it's going to someone you trust, but that can help you tell those people, because obviously they do need to know. But it's, I can understand from personal experience, sometimes it can be scary to tell them. So I think that's, from any point of where you're at, is just getting ready to talk about it, I think
Mm.
helps. And I never, I never would be. A lot of people I know don't like talking about it, and they think it's a sign of weakness. And I understand that it is scary to talk about. But I think for me, at the end of the day, it's, if I can help one girl, then I can help one girl. And I think that's just, I it would, if it make a difference, it make a difference. So I think, yeah, talking about it is very important.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's courage and strength of character really to share. And I think it's great there that you raise kind of that idea of speaking to someone who maybe there isn't such high stakes. That can be a great entry point into things. I suppose then for you, your journey has continued in a positive way, sort of from that blip in that point. Last year you had 4 GB vests in triathlon, including, like you said earlier, your first under 23 repping of the GB vest there in triathlon. Do you want to walk us through kind of how things shifted, sort of going to America, the decision to go there, and what's kind of the journey been like over the past few years?
Yeah, so I mean, I always knew that I wanted my dad to be my coach, and I knew that would be quite hard from a centre, because obviously they have, we are a centre back where we are, but I did want to study,
Mm.
and I think I didn't want to do that sort of commute that we have to our university. So, and there's I like the idea of sort of, I've always wanted to come to America. I had messages when I was 13, 14 about coming over here for running, but I knew I didn't want to be a runner. Um, and so after my world champs in Montreal, I had the coach reach out to me, and from Queens, and I came and visited, and I had an agency helping me, and I just sort of, I fell in love with it, to be honest. And I've always been quite a small school person. I don't really like big schools with lots of people. So it was just a perfect fit. And I think it's definitely been a challenge. A lot of people back home don't think it's the right move, and I can understand why. But I think for me, it's, my education is really important to me as well. And so I think it provides such a perfect balance of being able to train and study. And I think there's just so much support over here to be able to do that. um, and the facilities that you have, the healthcare help you have, and I think it's been such an incredible opportunity meeting new people. Um, I think I said to my mum the other day that it's nice. I have a bad swim session, and I'll go to CAF to eat in our cafeteria, and I'll see my friends on, I don't know, the rugby team who know nothing about triathlon, and so you can just take yourself out of that world, and it's not just triathlon 24/7. And I think it's a really positive way of being able to do that. So yeah, over here, I've been racing over here for NCAs. And then in terms of triathlon itself, I've just started racing for under 23 last year. I went to Europeans for under 23s. I got, I think it was fifth. And then we got the relay, so that was fun. The main goal of last year was just to be like able to qualify for a World Cup start. So it's just all about getting points. Sadly, at the end of the year, I wasn't able to try to qualify for Worlds. I had to come back to school early, so I wasn't able to hit the qualifier, and I had to sort of make that decision of, it just would have been, if I had been able to qualify, then it would have been too much travel. So sadly, I had to miss the qualifier. So then, yeah, going into this year, I had the opportunity to go over to Abu Dhabi and race the mixed team relay for WTCS, which was incredible. It's the top of the top, and it's all I've wanted really. So I think, yeah, it was such a nice message to get. I think at the start of this year, I was sat in the car with my mum waiting to go into the gym, and I was crying, saying, "Oh, I'm like, what if I can't do it? What if I can't make it? What if this isn't going to happen? And what if I'm not good enough?" And all this stuff, which has never happened before. It's never felt so real, with the scary thought of like this jump to, wow, what if I don't make it? And then I got this email saying that, would you like to race? And it was, like maybe I can. And I think it sort of helped, like, just put me back into focus. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And it's great to hear that that setup's working for you. And yeah, I guess it can be nice to have kind of the ability to change environments, but also be somewhere where kind of you've got all that support. And I guess variety is always a benefit. So I'm sure having a change from a setup which you've had for a long time has probably been beneficial. You talk about education being, quite important to you. Why is that for you? And what is it that you're studying?
So I've always loved studying. I mean, it's hard, obviously, but I really do enjoy it. So at the moment, I'm doing sports and exercise science, but it's a bit different, and pre-law. It's a bit different over here, the way they do it. So with my sports science that I'm doing here, I can also be sort of go down a pre-med track when I go back to the UK. So my rough idea is that when I graduate, I'll take a year, train, and then do law school online. So I can sort of travel and be a bit more flexible. And then when I finish my triathlon career, keeping the option open to go and study medicine. And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do law, and medicine is something that really interests me, to be honest. And I think, even though triathlon is my whole life, probably, I think it's nice to also have that. I am also excited for that second chapter of my life when I can start working,
Yeah.
which I mean, I'm excited for.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear. So, yeah, I think there's so many things that we could explore and talk about here, but yeah, we can't fit it all in. So, I guess firstly, it sounds like the system out in the States has been working for you and been going well. One, why do you think that is?
I think it's just very good in terms of, like, I live 3 minutes away from my furthest class away from me. I can see my pool and my training center from my window. And so I think it's just so easy. Like, if I have 45 minutes between a class, I can go run for half an hour. So I think that ease of sort of having the facilities right next to you, as well as there's so much support with academic advisors. And if you have to travel, then you can go and meet with them, and they can help you make sure you don't miss the work. Like when I went to Abu Dhabi, I even joined some classes online and via FaceTime so that I wouldn't miss it. So I think it's just the way it works. And I like having that structure of it is, I would say, in terms of the way it's structured, it's very similar to school back home. Like, you get given attendance, you have to submit your assignments. Whereas I know some of my friends back home are very, I don't want to use the word lazy, but are very going to college to do sport, which is fine. A lot of people do that, but for me, that's not the track I wanted to go down. I wanted to be able to focus on studying as well, which I think I've been able to do here really well.
No, that's really great that you had that self-awareness and proactivity to then pick an environment that works for you. And yeah, I agree. I think location's everything. I live like less than 5 minutes from everything I need to get to at the moment, and it's an absolute game changer, for sure. And my second point was around kind of that race you talk about it being your first WTS, which I'm assuming stands for World Triathlon Series. Feel free to sort of amend, elaborate,
Yeah.
and add on that with the answer, but did you experience then a degree of maybe imposter syndrome, or how was it? I guess people say sometimes as well, meeting your heroes isn't always great, so I suppose competing in a race that you've looked at for so long, yeah, talk us through it all.
Imposter syndrome's the right word. It's the exact phrase I used. I was okay for the first couple of days, and then a couple of days before the race, it was very much, why am I here? Like, do I deserve to be here? Is this? And then I had to lead off, which is like the first leg, and I was like, ah, like, what am I doing here? And but I sat down with I think it's a nice but also sometimes hard, because I've grown up in the sport. Everyone sort of just still sees me as, not sees me as a child, but everyone's known me since I was quite young. So in my head, that's what I was kind of going with. I was like, I was too young to be here and all this stuff. But the coaches sat down with me and said, look, we picked you because you're ready. And I think having that reaffirmation helped a lot. But I think, yeah, I mean, to go under, I don't want anyone to be under any illusion that I was going into that race without any sort of, I wouldn't say terrified. I was so excited, like going to the course recce's and seeing everyone that I see on TV. And it's nice as well because some of my friends, this was also their first opportunity. So I wasn't alone in that opportunity. I had some friends from the Netherlands who were racing in Germany. So it was nice to see them. But it was definitely like, whoa, like this is it. And it was just a crazy experience, but it was so fun. And I think progressing young ones in the way of going through the relay as well helps so much because you're then able to go in with not the mindset of like this is just about you. It's your whole team. And I think it definitely helped in that aspect, that it was a team environment, and the older ones were so helpful with that as well. We'd have the meeting the day before or the day of, and they were just offering advice anywhere they could. And if we were nervous, they were just always there to check in. So they were the whole team was incredible there.
Oh, that's super cool. And yeah, team can often be such a powerful tool. I suppose then for you, what was the kind of key takeaway that you took from that race, and were you happy with how you executed kind of at the big day?
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised, to be honest, with my race. I was really happy with my swim. I let out the swim and then with another girl, and then the bike was really hard. It was really hard, and then we got to the run and it was so hot, and
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm not really used to that kind of that heat all the time, so it was hard. But yeah, I mean, it was just yeah, it was incredible. I enjoyed every second of it, and when I finished, I was in La La Land, and it was just this is so cool. And it was a shame our second guy got taken out, and the relay ended on the second leg. But it's the thing; these things happen in relays, and it's more scary, not from the point of view that oh that's so annoying, but like is everyone okay? Because it's you've got that whole season to watch out for, and starting at the end of the beginning of the season having crashed out is scary to watch. So I'm just glad that everyone was okay in the crash, and that was the most important thing. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from the whole opportunity, the whole situation is probably next time I need to go in with the mindset of that I do deserve to be here
Mm.
and to just really live in the moment. My sister, Chloe, gave me advice one year when in Hamburg, my I'd had an injury leading into it, and I think it was Hamburg was maybe the third time I'd run in 2 months. I was aqua jogging, and my race didn't go the way I wanted to, and I crashed, and it was just a whole mess, and my whole family had come to watch, so I was like, oh, I've let everyone down. And she was like, look, you're not going to remember the race result in a few years, but you're going to remember the memories that you make there. And she was like, I couldn't tell you one race result, but I could tell you the after parties, and I could tell you about watching the races and things like that. And I think that's what I think about now is even if the race hadn't gone to plan, it was still such an incredible trip. And so I think it's just sometimes when you leave that bubble, it can be really hard. I mean, obviously, never experienced the Olympic bubble, hopefully one day. But obviously, people talk about that a lot. But even at this level, like leaving a championship bubble is really hard because you're in a whole nother world. And then it's like, oh, back to reality, like what happens now? So yeah, it's definitely all learning, and it's just so useful at this age to be able to be exposed to it on the journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, I guess imposter syndrome just takes kind of time and chipping away. But yeah, I can imagine that is something that's very real. But sounds like you've got a great sister there in Chloe with some, yeah, top-notch sisterly advice. Yeah, it seems like a great way to deal with the situation. I suppose you mentioned there kind of the potential come down from being in a bit of a bubble there, which yeah, it very much sounds like it is. What was that experience like?
It was definitely hard. I came back for a couple of days after, and I didn't really train. I was just like, well, like what's going on? And I came back and I raced at a conference track here, and I was like, this is just so different. And actually being at that race, I decided to graduate early. So I'm graduating in December instead of January, just so I can get started with racing and going abroad and traveling to two races, because I think it is a bit more limited at the moment with being in school for the beginning early on in the season. So yeah, it's hard. And I think this race wasn't bad, but some races, like I remember coming off of Europeans before and just being like, whoa, this is really hard. But again, like my sisters helped me, not just my parents, but my sisters have so much experience, and they all help me in different ways, in their own ways. And I think having that support system around's been their advice and their own experience with it has helped so much. But yeah, it's definitely some come downs are bigger than other. I think after I got my first medal at European Juniors my last year, and coming off of that, I was like, well, what now? Like life's just back to normal. I was like, it felt like everything to me. I remember not being able to sleep that night. And now it's kind of like, so I think it is definitely hard. And I don't honestly know if it will ever be something that you get used to, but I haven't had enough. I don't think I've had enough experience yet to know if that bubble is going to get easier or not. But it's certainly quite difficult at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like it's a unique challenge that comes along with being at the top. And I do think that balance underpins everything. And if you're, up here competing at the top, having those highs, then the lows that go along with them are going to be real. And yeah, I suppose that just takes time to adjust to that. And I guess then, my final question, kind of on sort of your journey, what are your plans then post graduation? Are you looking to sort of go pro, self fund, invest fully in triathlon?
Yeah, funding. Well, we will we will see. My parents have been like incredible at the moment. They've been helping me so much. And I think I wouldn't be able to do this without them. So I think yeah, I'll graduate and I honestly don't know. It's
Mm.
been the biggest question right now. All I know is that I want to train and I want to race and I want to give everything I can to trying to make the Olympic team. And it's no small feat. GB is the strongest, one of the strongest teams in the world. So it's definitely not going to be easy. But if not this time round, then hopefully the next time round, and just keep trying for that and everything else around it. It's just learning experience. So yeah, I think I definitely want to travel a bit. My try Australia for a month or two and just get some training in there. But I yeah, just get started, I think, with sport and give it a proper full go that other people have had the opportunity to do without having studied alongside it.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And yeah, it's a exciting but also challenging time of life, that sort of post-education. Oh, okay, now what? What am I going to do? Where's things going to go? But no, I think things should hopefully go well for you. And yeah, you say, GB's got one of the strongest teams, and for sure it won't be easy, but you also seem to have one of the sort of strongest mindsets that you can have as an athlete. So, I'm
Mm.
sure that you've got as much chance as anyone really. And I suppose then just sort of general reflections overall. For you, what do you think is the most valuable thing you've done for your triathlon career so far?
I mean, I think you can get a lot of general responses, like in terms of what the usual. I think I was trying to think about something that maybe is a bit different. And I think the biggest thing, whether it's different, I don't know, but is is sort of try to work on my mental side of things. I think the way I approach things and the way I look at things, and I think that's just been the biggest game changer. It's such a mental sport as well, and I think that sometimes it can be difficult because you look at people and you don't want people to perceive you as cocky when they say like, yeah, I want to go to the Olympics, and people go, oh, she's so cocky, and it's like, no, it's confidence. I'm not saying I'm going to get there, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's what I want to do. And I think having that, saying it out loud and making it real is definitely something that I learned is also good, like saying what you want to do out loud, and okay, you've said it now, so now do everything you can to do that. And I think it's just having that mindset of separating the confidence from the cocky, but having the confidence. Like Keely Hodgkinson to me is incredible. Like watching her in the interviews, just her confidence is just
Mm.
like it's so inspiring to watch as a young athlete coming through, and how young she is as well, and the success she's had. And that's outside of triathlon. Obviously, she's a 800-meter runner, so it's that's definitely helped a lot with my mindset. Is just trying to not be like her, obviously, but sort of follow in the way that she's able to carry herself.
Yeah, no, definitely. She definitely does seem to have a phenomenal mindset about her. And I think something I've noticed is what I think separates some of the very top athletes from the top athletes is I think a lot of people are saying and acknowledging, oh, that mindset's important, the mental side of things is important. But I think what really separates the two classes is those who actually commit to it, believe it, and truly embrace kind of the mindset side of things, because yeah, I think it is such an important factor in success. So yeah, no, that's really interesting that you say that for sure. And then I guess for you, what is your favorite sport within triathlon?
Ah, uh, everyone always asks me this question, and I really can't pick because for different reasons, it's different things. I think it depends where I am in the world. Like if I'm in a really nice place, then probably riding because I want to go and explore and see everywhere. Whereas I love swimming and I love swimming in the open water and like I get to race in Kitzbühel in Austria and it's my favorite place to race because the lake, it looks like an Evian water bottle, like the
Oh.
mountains and the lake is incredible. Sometimes I'm racing and I need to remind myself to lock back into the race because I'm looking around at everything. And then running because I've just it's running, it's a nice mental relax, it's freeing. So I think all of them for different reasons, to be honest. I really don't know which one.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good answer for someone who does all three. And for sure, some of those courses sound absolutely phenomenal. Not kind of the pondweed, algae kind of vibes you get when you think of sort of a standard classic normal people's triathlon. Definitely the tier up. But actually, I did want to follow up on one thing you said previously around that line between sort of confidence and it coming off cocky. It's a very difficult one, that balance of trying to be honest with, you know, your goals and what you want and the perception that people might take that in the wrong light. But I think that that often is maybe from a place of jealousy from others because,
Mm.
yeah, why do you think there is so much sort of, I guess, negativity in society around people owning their goals and ambitions and having that confidence within themselves?
I think it really is, as you said, like it's the jealousy side of things, and people are going to hate that you say it, but it's true. And I think I said to my dad, like, my goal for this year is to have a much more let them mentality. Like, if people don't like what I say, let them. If people don't want to be around me and surround themselves with me, let them. And I think it's definitely a fine line of not coming across like I'm going to go win the Olympics. Like, obviously, you can't like that's it's I mean you can want to, but it's how you word things I think is a bit
Mm.
different. But I think it's just being able to separate the people that are jealous, and it's there's nothing wrong with it. But I mean it's just so difficult to navigate, I think, as well. And especially I think it would probably be more in girls than boys. You have girls
Mm.
who are afraid to say it themselves, so instead of saying it themselves they'll bring other people down. And I think that's something I'll actively try and not to do. Is if I hear someone say something, yeah, go for it, like good try, like. And if people like, I love competition, and so when there's a group of strong girls in the UK, like I said, like me and Anna, like I love racing Anna and she's my best friend, and but I know that she has the same goals as me, and so it's like doing it together and supporting each other and just not being afraid of what other people think. I think that's what encompasses it all, is just having that, if they want to think that, they can think that. And it's definitely not easy. I I still constantly am like, I'll put a reel out and I'm like, is that too cocky? Do people care? I'm like, oh no, what am I saying? Like, but then it comes to the point where it's like, at the end of the day, if people are going to judge you, they're going to judge you, and you can't do anything to change that. And they're going to find something to judge you about. If it's not what you say, then it's about something else. So you just have to do your thing, and they'll stop talking when you get to your goal. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing. You can't please everyone in life, and you do just have to sort of own your journey. And I think, you know, where you touch on the let them side of things, that's a very powerful phrase. I know Mel Robbins is someone who talks a lot
yeah.
about, yeah, a lot about the power of that. And it is really true. You know, you've just got to do what you've got to do, live by your morals, try to be the best human you can be. And that's all that you can do, really. And I think as well, you know, you bring in the female side of things there. I know that it definitely seems that men are a lot more open with each other. It seems that within a male circle, they can be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win." They're more open with their competition, but then also they seem to be less hostile with each other afterwards. Whereas I feel
Yeah.
like with the female side of things, it's all sort of in the mind and unsaid things, and it's very subtle and afterwards it remains there. There's none of that sort of diffusion. And I wonder if some
Mm.
of that is from it being kind of all internalized, whereas maybe if we spoke about it and owned it, it would be less hostile in the
Mm.
long run.
I mean, I think for me, at the end of the day, is when you get to our age, if you don't want to win a race, if you don't want to get to the Olympics, why are you doing the sport? Like, it's harsh, but it's true. If that's not your end goal, then that's fine. But it's everyone's goal. Everyone wants to go to the Olympics. Everyone wants to win the Olympics. And you can sit back and you can pretend that that's not what you want to do, and you can judge people for saying that's what they want to do. But it's the pinnacle, it's the ultimate thing of sport. And so I think a lot of the times with girls, it is that hostile environment of judging each other and creating that jealousy. And I think it is hard not to do, but I think that's why, like, as I've grown up, you slowly realize who actually are your friends and who do you want to surround yourself with. And my circle's gotten very small, but the people that are in my circle, I trust with my life, that they're incredible. And I think you just have to look at people who are your friends for the right reasons and who are you surrounding yourself with for the wrong reasons. And I think it will come to light who those people are, and if they are, then you don't want them in your circle. And I think, as I said before, it is definitely just they'll stop talking when you get there, and you just have to. And I think that's the mindset I'm sort of trying to very focus on is I don't see why guys can say it and I can't say it. Like if a guy says I'm going to go win this race in an interview, like, oh, like, look at him, he's confident, he's ready, he's raring to go. If I say I want to go win that race, oh, she's cocky, she's and there's just all these in this judging. It's like I don't like that kind of attitude, and I will call people out if they say it. So I think, yeah, that's definitely going forward. Probably one of my big goals for this year is to own what I want to do. And I think it can also be scary for people, because if you say it and it doesn't happen, then it is scary. But then at the end of the day, it's part of sport. You're not always going to get what you want. And I think it's a big part of sport. You can't be afraid of failure. And I think that speaking out about it takes that away a bit. But that's how I view it.
No, absolutely bang on. I think you've hit the two nails there. Yes, there's that kind of maybe intrinsic societal female side of things, but then also definitely there's that fear of failure, that if you announce it and then fall short of that, how does that come off to other people? So no, I think it's great that you bring that up too. And yeah, it's so true about kind of, yeah, getting a close circle, but of people that you do value. And that's where I think maturity is so nice. You can kind of just do what you need to do, and you're not worrying about the stuff that you maybe used to worry about when you're younger. So no, that is great to hear. I would maybe argue slightly that maybe not everyone is necessarily aiming for the Olympics, but I think a lot of people probably who do take it seriously at this point are aiming for something, be that maybe an international vest or I don't know, something similar. But I think definitely, yeah, if someone's doing the sport and putting a lot of time into it, they for sure want something of value from it.
No, definitely. And from that meaning was the meaning of sort of when I go to those races of like the WTCS, and that
Oh
I've
yeah.
started being able to go to this year. Not that I'm an avid, I've done one, but sort of that European Cup level, that world in triathlon, it is a bit different from running, like who I'm
Okay.
around at the moment. So it would be like that is kind of the progression. But for running, I completely agree. Like I was getting my first international vest, I was so excited. I remember standing in the SIAB tent getting to pick out all my kit, and I was like, this is the best day of my life. It's like Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's all those things that just make it so special.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's very, very true. I think, yeah, anyone competing internationally and for sure within triathlon as well, with the time required and commitment, I think, yeah, definitely would be quite different on that front. And yeah, I suppose we've come to the end of our time for today. So a couple of quick fire questions to close out with. Number one, what would you do if you won the lottery?
What would I do? Probably pay my parents back for everything that they've spent on me. And then I would probably take my whole family on a holiday somewhere nice, somewhere that I can train. And then
Nice.
depends how much money I have left over. If I've got money left over, then depends how much money I won. I'd like to set up a little charity at some point in my career. So that could be that, but we'll see.
Oh no, I love that. And what sort of charity would you look to set up?
Something around mental health in sports, but
Mm,
specifically targeting mental health in sports, and not just females, but males
yeah.
and females.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a really valuable thing to do. And yeah, it's such an important cause as well in that respect. And for you, say you go into a typical shop, let's go, I don't know, supermarket. What's the first aisle you go to?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
uh,
That was pretty conclusive. Is there a chocolate of choice?
Dairy milk chocolate buttons, all marvelous creations. That's
Oh.
another reason why I had to move to America, was to get away from the chocolate. I did have a very bad problem, and here we don't. The chocolate's really bad, so it sorts that one out.
Yeah, well, do you know, there's always silver linings in everything. Have you got an unusual talent, hobby, or thing that you've done?
Think so, to be honest. I was trying to think about this the other day. I've never, when people ask me if I've got an unusual talent, I never really have an answer. I can get my tongue to touch my nose. That's probably it.
Oh yeah, that definitely counts. Do you have any other hobbies that you do outside of triathlon?
I like reading, and maybe playing guitar, but I'm
Ooh.
definitely not very good at it.
No, that's pretty cool. And for you, is there a book that you read recently that you thought was particularly good?
Currently reading Pollyanna. My mum is a big avid, if something goes wrong, Pollyanna. So with a bit of change right now going on in life, I started to read Pollyanna. So that's currently the book that I'm reading, and I do really like it. It's such a great story.
No, that's really cool. And yeah, if anyone's going through a bit of a rocky patch or a bit of change, maybe check that book out. If you started a business, what would it be in and why?
If I started a business, I kind of like the idea of a coffee shop, like somewhere like I go to a place and I do loads of rides, and at the point where I want a coffee shop and there's not one, I'd make one there.
I love that. No, that's really cool. Are you a coffee drinker yourself?
Yeah, only when I really came to America, I couldn't deal with the studying and training without the coffee.
Yeah, I can imagine it. It sounds like a lot. And finally, someone who's inspired you and why.
I think all my sisters have inspired me in different ways, but I think my biggest inspiration is my sister Chloe.
Yeah.
She's been through incredible amounts of every single time there's something in her way, she moves past it. She finds the positive. She's been injured multiple times. She's had to miss championships and she's still come back stronger. She's had to stop triathlon, but now found high rocks. And it's again, I don't want to go into too much detail about her story because it's her story to share, but she's just had such an incredible journey. And every time I do something, I want to do it as well with her in mind because she's just helped me mentally so much, even without knowing. And sometimes if I'm doing a hard session on the treadmill, I'll get one of her Instagram photos up and put it next to me and just like, look, if she can get through this, I can get through this. I don't actually think she knows that, so hopefully she doesn't listen. Uh,
Oh, well, I hope she is listening because those are some really beautiful words. And yeah, Chloe definitely sounds like quite an incredible person. Clearly, a family of, yeah, amazing women there. And yeah, my final last question, my new favorite, just keep forgetting about it. What's the number one thing that you want someone listening to take away from this episode?
I guess to encompass it all is just be brave. I think whatever you're going through, like whether it's an eating problem or whether it's a struggling with the sport or whatever it might be, I think just go in with it with a mindset of just being brave.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Be brave, guys, and yeah, embrace what's in front of you. No, thank you so much for a really great episode, Beth. You know, you've got a lot of insight and yeah, an amazing mindset on you, and I think you've added a lot of things of value which a lot of people could take away from this episode. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
No, it was a pleasure. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.